Hey everyone, thanks for learning to play games. My name is Lance, and in today's video I'm going to teach you how to play Star Wars The Clone Wars. This is a brand new one from Z-Man Games. It is a 1 to 5 player game that takes roughly 45 minutes to an hour and a half to play, and it's a fully cooperative game where all the players are working together to defeat the different missions and the villain they've chosen to play against. So in this video I'm going to teach you how to play, starting with components, setup, player turns, and endgame conditions. As always, if you find my videos helpful, if you like what I do, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to my channel, and also sharing the video, as all those things help continue to grow my channel and others so that we can produce these videos. If you want to stay up to date on all my videos, also give that notification bell a ring, and that'll let you know whenever I drop new videos, as I'm constantly dropping new ones, including teaching videos, playthroughs, unboxings, and Kickstarter coverage, among many other types of videos. So if you want to be notified, give that bell a ring. So let's head to the table, and I'll teach you how to play. There's one custom 12-sided die included in the game, and this die is going to have 2 different symbols in different combinations throughout the die. The first symbol is a little star with a circle around it, and each one of these symbols is going to count as 1 success for whatever you're rolling the die for. Next, you're going to have the little blast symbol on some of the sides, and this is going to count as a damage. There are also 5 different decks of cards you're going to be using throughout the game. The first deck that I want to go over is the Invasion deck, and this deck is going to have 1 card for each one of the planets in the game. And each one of these cards is going to list the name of that planet, show an image of it, and where it's located on the board. You'll be using these during the player's turns during the invasion step, which I'll go into more detail about later in the video. The second deck of cards are the mission cards, and each one of these cards is going to list the name of the mission on the top, along with the different icons or different types of squad cards that each Jedi can spend in order to count as successes towards that mission, the minimum number of successes that the Jedi need to complete the mission, and if completed, the amount of damage that is dealt to the Jedi. Next are the different conditions or effects that these missions are going to have, and there's going to be all kinds of different ones. Some will have effects when drawn, so you'll have to resolve those once you draw the mission. Others will have effects once you've completed it, where others will have different things that will affect how the mission is completed. Then each of the missions, again, is going to have a map showing where that planet is on the map, and at the bottom of the card is going to be a little flavor text section that is just going to give you a little bit of backstory about that mission. The third deck of cards is the squad cards, and this deck is going to be comprised of 5 different types of cards: Assault, Stealth, Armor, Transport, and Ally. Each of these cards is going to have an icon up in the top corner of that type that is going to correspond to the type of card it is, and each is also going to be color coordinated, so all Assault cards will have a red lining around them. Then you're going to have an image on that card along with that card's name, and these are just flavor texts. For those of you that have watched Star Wars, you will recognize some of the names of the different troops or vehicles and so on. At the bottom of the card is going to be the effect of that card, and all cards of that type are going to have the same effect. So all Assault cards, you can add a success to an attack on your planet. And likewise with all Armor cards, they're going to prevent 1 damage to a Jedi on your planet. Finally, you'll have ally cards, and this is the one exception to that. With each of these cards, they have a unique ability that when you discard the card, you'll be able to carry out the effect of that ability. Each player is going to be controlling 1 or more Jedi throughout the game, and each Jedi is going to have its own card that is going to have an image of that Jedi, the name of the Jedi, a special ability that that Jedi has, and a little bit of flavor text at the bottom of the card. And the final deck is the Villain deck. Each game is going to have you fighting against 1 villain, and each villain has their own custom deck of 6 cards. Each of these cards is going to have an icon of that villain on the back and front of the card, along with the name of the card, an image of that villain, and then the effects. Some cards will have effects depending upon if the villain is on the board or off of the board, where other cards are going to have multiple effects that you're going to resolve in order. Each villain is also going to have a large card that will go with them. These cards are going to list the amount of health that that villain has. Some of the villains are also going to have additional setup instructions. You'll have the image of the villain on the side along with their name and some little bit of backstory about that villain. And then each of the villains is going to have some different effects as well. Some villains are going to have an ability, others will have other things going down the side of the card. And on the back of the card, once the players have completed all the missions, then they'll have the final mission against the villain. And this is going to list some final setup and an image of where that's going to take place, and the different requirements for that mission that you'll have to complete just like any other mission. Again, you'll have the name of the villain and then any additional backstory about them. And each one is going to work a little bit differently. Here with General Grievous, he has a number of different missions that must be completed, and there is a slider included in the game that you can clip on and will keep track of all of those different things as well. There are 3 different types of enemies you're going to be running into throughout the game. The first ones are battle droids, and each of these only has 1 health, so they're going to go down quickly, but they can accumulate on planets if not dealt with. Next, you're going to have blockades. When a blockade is placed down, Jedi are not allowed to attempt missions on planets with a blockade, and blockades are also going to prevent damage being done to any battle droids or villains on that planet until they are destroyed. Blockades are going to take 2 damage before being destroyed. And the final type are villains, and it depends on the villain that you're playing in the game, which model you're using, and the different stats for that model will be on its card, as you already saw. For setup, the first thing you're going to do is place the game board out in the middle of the table. Then go ahead and grab the 2 blue clear tokens. You're going to place one on the 0 point on the threat track, and one on the number 2 spot on the invasion track. Next, you're going to choose a villain you want to face for this game. For your first game, it is recommended to go against the Ventress. So that's who I'm going to use. And you're going to place her card down so that the non-final side is face up. Then you're also going to grab her deck, shuffle it up, and place it in its spot above the board. If the villain has the reminder point on her card, you're also going to place the reminder marker on the top of her deck. Or if your villain has any additional setup instructions, you're going to handle them at this point. You can also place the die out somewhere where all players can reach it, and all the different miniatures you're going to be using for the game, including the battle droids and the blockades. Then go ahead and grab the invasion deck and separate the 2 mission planet cards out from it and place those in the invasion discard pile. Then go ahead and shuffle up the invasion deck and place that out in the invasion deck slot. From there, then you're going to start the invasion. And so you're going to reveal 2 cards from the invasion deck. With each one of them, you're going to place 3 battle droids on that planet. So we have Todera, and that one will have 3. And Coruscant. Next, you're going to draw 2 cards and place 2 droids on them. So we have Geonosis and Alistair. And then you're going to draw 2 more cards and put 1 droid on them. So first we have Deathmere. And with this final card, you're going to place the 1 battle droid on there as usual and your villain. So then we have Corellia, and our Ventress will start there. For player setup, each player is going to choose 1 or more Jedi that they would like to control, and they will gain that Jedi's card and miniature. And then from there, you're going to go ahead and shuffle up all of the quick reference cards, as the back of each card is going to list where that Jedi is going to start. And you're going to deal 1 of those cards out to each player. So we have Ahsoka, who is going to start in Kamino. And we have Anakin, who is going to be starting in Kashyyyk. Next, go ahead and shuffle up the squad deck, and then based on the number of players, as you can see here, each player is going to receive a number of cards. So in a 2 and 3 player game, you're going to receive 3 cards from this deck. These can be kept face up as well, as you're all working together with this. The rest of the cards can be placed in the squad deck slot. From there, you're going to build your mission deck. So go ahead and shuffle up the mission cards, and then as you can see here on this chart, you're going to select a difficulty. So I'm going to go ahead and select Jedi Knight, and so I'm going to randomly draw 4 mission cards from this mission deck. So let's go with that one, this one. Okay. The rest of these cards can be returned to the box, as you're not going to use them for the rest of this game. Then you can go ahead and shuffle up the deck that you just made and place that out in the mission deck slot. From there, then you're going to reveal the top 2 cards and place a mission token out in each one of those spots. So our first mission is going to be in Malastair. And you'll also handle any when drawn effects, or if there's any setup instructions for that. And then we also have Water War in Monkella. And that one's up in the top corner here. All right, and then neither one of these have setup instructions or when drawn effects that we have to handle. The last thing is choosing a starting player, and you can do this with whoever has the higher ground or however you want to do it. From there, then you're ready to move into the game. Star Wars The Clone Wars is played over an undefined number of turns. Starting with the first player and proceeding clockwise, players will continue taking turns until one of the endgame conditions is met. Either the players will win the game by completing all of the missions and defeating the villain's final mission before the threat token reaches the bottom of the threat track, or the players will lose the game if the threat token reaches the bottom of the threat track before the players are able to complete those missions. So from here, let's move into the game, and I'm going to start with the player turns. Each player's turn is going to be broken down into 4 steps that the player is going to handle in order. These steps are to ready your cards, do 4 actions, activate villain, and invade planets. I'm going to break down each one of these steps in more detail so you know how this works. Before moving into a player's turn, there's a couple of important concepts I want to go over. The first one is with squad cards. So each player has a maximum hand limit of 7 cards, so if they ever have more than 7 cards, they have to discard down to 7. Or if they have an ally card, they can spend it for its ability, or discard it for its ability. And then squad cards have 2 different states. When they're face up, they are in their ready state and can be used for their ability at the bottom of the card. In order to do this, you're going to exhaust the card by turning it on its side, and then you'll gain the benefit of that card. Now, once a card is in its exhausted state, you will not be able to use it again until it's back in its ready state. Another important feature with the squad cards is that when you use them for their ability, you can use it to improve one of the actions you're taking, or if a fellow Jedi is on the same planet as you, you can also use it to help them during their turn. And the other important concept is wounds. So whenever a Jedi takes wounds, they're going to have to choose a squad card per wound to discard to the discard pile. This can be a squad card that is exhausted or in the ready state. And if you have armor or another player has armor, and when they're at your planet, they can exhaust that to prevent a damage that you take. And for each one of these that is exhausted, you'll be able to prevent 1 damage. If you still have wounds to take and are out of cards, then the rest of the wounds are simply going to be ignored. There are no other bad effects from those. The first step in a player's turn is to ready all of their squad cards. Now, at the beginning of the game, all of your squad cards are already going to be in the ready state, but throughout the player's turns, they're going to exhaust these cards by turning them onto their side, as I just explained to you. So during this step, if you have any exhausted cards, you're going to get to turn them all to their ready state. From there, you're ready to move on to step 2. The second step in the player's turn is to perform up to 4 actions. And there are 4 different types of actions a player can perform. These are fly, reinforce, attack, and attempt mission. Each action can be performed multiple times, but each time you perform that action, it will count as 1 action. Each player's Jedi card also is going to list a free action that player can do during this step, and you can only do that once per turn. So from here, let's move into each one of the actions so that I can go into more detail about how each one of those works. The fly action allows you to move your Jedi from your planet onto an adjacent planet that is connected by a line. For example, with Anakin right now, he is on Kashyyyk, so he can move from Kashyyyk over to Nal Hutta, or Obadiah, Lola Seyu, Umbara, or Toydara, as each one of these planets is connected by a line to Kashyyyk. If Anakin happens to have an unexhausted transport card, he can also exhaust that to double his flight. Or if another Jedi is on the same planet as Anakin, that Jedi could also exhaust a transport card of theirs that has not been exhausted yet to allow Anakin to double his flight. The reinforce action will allow you to draw the top card of the squad deck and add it to your hand. So for example, with Anakin, if I took a reinforce action, I would take that card and add it to my hand. I can do this even if I already have 7 cards, at which point then I can choose one of those cards to discard, including the card I just drew. I could even discard a card that is already exhausted. The attack action will normally allow you to attack enemies on your planet. Now, there might be abilities or other cards that might allow you to attack enemies on adjacent planets, but normally you must be on the planet with enemies in order to attack them. So for this example, let's go ahead and say that Anakin is on Toydara here with the 3 battle droids, and he wants to perform an attack action. So the first step in this is to roll the die, and that will tell you the amount of damage that you do. Each star that you roll is going to count as 1 damage that you can allocate to an enemy on that planet. From there, I can also choose to spend cards to add additional damage to that attack. Normally, these are either going to be stealth cards or assault cards. The one important note with the cards is that you can only use one type or the other. So for example, if I had one assault card and one stealth card, I could not use both of those to add 1+1. Now that I have 2 stealth cards, I could use both of these, exhausting them each, to add 1 additional damage to that attack, which would bump me up to 4 damage. But let's go ahead and say that I just choose to exhaust 1 instead. So I'm doing 3 damage. Each damage I do will remove 1 battle droid. So all 3 of these little battle droids would have been eliminated. From there, then, if there is a damage marker on the die, and for each enemy that is still on the planet after I resolve the attack, I am going to take 1 damage. And with that, each time I take a damage, I have to discard one of my squad cards from my hand. I can even choose a card that is exhausted. So I have 1 damage coming my way. I could choose this card to discard at this point. If I am out of cards and still have damage remaining, then that is simply going to be wasted, and there are no other ill effects with that. So moving into another example, let's go ahead and say instead that we had the 3 battle droids in here, and I also have a blockade in here. So blockades are going to stop damage from being allocated to any other enemy while they are on there. So I have to destroy the blockade first. And so I'm doing 2 damage to destroy that. And then I can again spend these to do 2 more damage to the droids. At this point, when I resolve, I'm going to take 1 damage from this droid and then 1 damage from the die. Going back to this example one more time, let's go ahead and say that Ahsoka is on the same planet as well during this attack action. So again, I can choose to exhaust these, and she can also help. She has 1 assault card or 1 stealth card as well that she can exhaust, and now we're eliminating all of the enemies on this planet. Then again, when resolving, I'm going to take 1 damage, but she also has an armor that she can exhaust to help me out and prevent that damage as well. The final type of action you can perform is to attempt a mission. In order to be able to perform this, you must be on a planet that currently has one of the mission tokens on it. The planet can also not have the villain or a blockade in order to attempt a mission. So for this example, let's go ahead and say that Anakin is over in Malastare and he wishes to try this mission, which is not going to happen. But let's go ahead and go through the steps anyways. So on this planet, he wants to attempt a mission. There is not a villain on this planet or a blockade, so he can do so. So in order to do that, then he's going to roll the die, and then that will tell him the number of successes he has. Then he's going to look at the mission card, and then each one of the missions is going to list the types of cards you can exhaust to add successes to that mission. So this particular one allows us to use assault, stealth, armor, and transports. And each one of those we exhaust, we will add 1 success. Now, one important note with this is that you will not carry out the effects of the card when exhausting it. It's simply for the mission itself. So you can use assault and stealth for this, as both of those are shown. So I could exhaust all 3 of these, adding 1 additional success per card exhausted, but that's only going to bring me to 4. So in that situation, I would fail the mission, and I would suffer the damage that is listed on the die that I rolled. So I would take 1 damage, again, resolving that effect. I won't take any damage from any of the different enemies on that planet. And I will not suffer the damage from the mission itself, only on the die. Now on a success, so let's go ahead and say instead that Ahsoka is down here with me, and I have some additional cards. So let's go ahead and say that I have something like this, and I had rolled this instead. So I have 2 successes going into this, and then I'm going to go ahead and exhaust this for 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And then since Ahsoka is down there with me, she's going to exhaust this one for 8, and this one for 9. So now I have met the requirements of the mission, and I have completed it. So again, I'm going to suffer damage, this time from the die as well as the mission. So I'm going to take 3 damage. So I would have to discard 3 cards to the discard pile. And then on top of that, if the mission itself had any when completed conditions, this particular one does not, so it'll be removed and completed. And then we would reveal a new mission and place the token out, which I'll cover in a minute. But let's go ahead and say, for example, we were working on the Water War instead. With this one, it says when completed, you're going to roll the die 3 times and the current Jedi suffers 1 damage per hit rolled. So that could be really nasty. Anyways, we completed the mission, so now I'm going to reveal a new mission card, This one is going to be the lost one, and this is going to be on Obadiah, so I'm going to go ahead and move that token up there. And then this one has a 1 completed as well, so I don't have any additional things that I have to resolve when that comes out. If you've completed all of them, let's go ahead and say instead that I had completed that mission and there was no new mission cards to draw. At that point, I'm going to add this mission token to the same space as the other mission token to signify that that's the only mission left. And then when I complete this mission, now I'm going to reveal the villain's card, flipping it over, and then resolving any setup instructions on that for the final mission. Now that I've covered the 4 different action types, let me put this all together and take you through this step. So with this, let's go ahead and say that it's Anakin's turn. And so during this step, I'm going to go ahead and move 1 space as my first action. My second action, I'm going to go ahead and reinforce. My third action, I will do the same again. And then I'm also going to activate Anakin's ability. So he has a free action, which allows him to attack, and then he can use any cards as if they were assault cards during this attack. So I'm going to go ahead and initiate a free attack action. And so I do 2 successes there, and I will go ahead and exhaust 5s. And that will take care of these 3. Or actually, let's go ahead and do the heavy instead. So that's an assault card. So these will be removed and added back to the supply. And I do have 1 action remaining, so I'm going to go ahead and move up to Kamino as my last action so that I can use the transport if Ahsoka wants to move off of there. Once a player has completed all of their actions or chosen not to perform any additional actions, they're going to move on to the 3rd step of their turn, which is activating the villain. So first off with this step, if the villain has the reminder token that is on there, it is going to remind you to handle that effect. So with the Ventress, her effect is if she is on a mission planet, she is going to advance the threat. Currently she is not on a mission planet, so I don't have to resolve that. And so I will remove that reminder token for the moment so that I can draw the top card of the villain deck. And this one has 2 different conditions. So first off, you'll resolve it from the top down. And so the top condition is if the Ventress is on the board. So she is, so I'm just going to handle this one. So this one is going to have the Ventress move 1 planet towards the closest mission planet. So in this situation, the player whose turn it is going to choose the path as there is an equal path to this planet. So she's trying to move towards Malastare as that is the closest mission planet. So she can move on to Berdada or Naboo to get there as each one is 2 spaces away from this one. So let's go ahead and say that I would prefer to move her to Naboo. From there, then this card will be added to the discard pile. Now with this one, if the Ventress was not, if she had been eliminated and she was off the board, then I would have handled the bottom effect, which would be to place the Ventress on the top planet, with the top planet being the top planet in the discard pile. So with this one being Corellia, she would be on that one, which happened to be the one that she started on. So that would be how that is resolved, and then this is going to be discarded. Now, the one other example that I want to go over with this is each villain is also going to have 1 Planet Under Siege card in their villain deck. And this card is going to have 3 steps that are going to be done in order. The first step is going to be that you are going to advance the invasion marker. So this will move up 1 space on the invasion track. If it is at the highest space where you cannot move it again, then instead you're going to increase the threat marker by 1. The second step is to draw the bottom card of the invasion deck and fill the matching planet with 3 droids. So with this one, I'd have to draw the bottom card of the invasion deck, which is Christophosis. And we're going to add 3 droids to that planet. So that is over here. And then this will be added to the discard. And then the final step is that you're going to shuffle the invasion discard pile and place it face down on top of the invasion deck. So at this point, this deck would be shuffled up, and then it's going to be placed back on top of the invasion deck. Once you've completed your card, then you're going to place the reminder back on the next card in the villain deck so that you're ready to go during the next turn. The final step in a player's turn is to invade planets. In order to carry this step out, you're going to consult the invasion track, and based on where the token is, that is a number of planets you're going to reveal from the invasion deck, and for each planet you reveal, you're going to place one droid on that planet. So let's look at an example of this. I'm going to go ahead and draw the top card, and so I'm going to add a droid to Ortloff. Then that card will be discarded, and I'll reveal the next card, and this one's now Atha, so I'm going to add one there. And then that'll be discarded, and then that would be the end of the player's turn. There's also some other conditions that can happen during this step. The first is if you need to add a droid to a planet that already has 3 droids on it, you're going to trigger an occupation. There are 2 steps that are going to be handled with this. First, you're going to increase the threat by 1, and then you're going to add a blockade to that planet. A planet can have multiple blockades on it as well. So if Coruscant already had a blockade on it, and I pulled it again, and there's still 3 droids on here, I would add another blockade, again also increasing the threat by 1. Now, if you need to add a blockade to a planet for some other reason besides triggering an occupation, you will not increase the threat track for that situation. The other one that's going to come up is if you need to add a droid to a planet and you're out of droids in the pile, then you are also going to increase the threat by 1 per droid that you need to add that you're unable to add to a planet. And then the final thing is if you need to draw a card from the invasion deck and it happens to be empty, then you are going to shuffle up the invasion discard pile to create a new deck. Once a player has completed the invade planets part of their turn, then their turn has come to an end and it'll pass to the next player in clockwise order to take their turn. At this point, it's going to continue going player after player until one of the endgame conditions is met, which again is if the players are able to complete all of the missions and then defeat the villain's final mission before the threat token reaches the bottom of the track, then all the players have won the game. If at any point during the game, the threat token reaches the bottom of the threat track before the players are able to accomplish the missions, then the game is over immediately and all the players have lost. So at this point, there's one final thing I want to go over, which is the villain's final mission and how to set that up and resolve that. Once you've completed the last mission card, then you're going to immediately reveal the villain's final mission. So you'll flip their card over and then handle any setup instructions with that. For the Ventress, as you can see, you're going to place Ventress and both mission markers on Solus. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then it's also going to have you fill Solus with 2 droids. So I'll add 2 more droids down here. And then you're also going to return the reminder token to the box. So at this point, then our players would work on completing this mission, which is going to require 10, and it's going to only be able, you're only going to be able to use assault and transports to help you with this mission. Once you complete this mission though, the game is over and the players have won. Again, unless the threat token has reached the bottom of that track before that point. Well, I hope you found the video helpful in learning how to play Star Wars: The Clone Wars. If you have any questions or comments, please post those in the comment section below and I'll do my best to answer them. And please share the video with your friends as well. I really appreciate it. As always, thank you so much for taking the time to watch my videos and leave me feedback on them. I do really appreciate it and take into account everything you say to make the best possible videos. And until next time, may the Force be with you.